Today we're going through every MLB team and looking at the last time each franchise won a World Series. Some of these teams won recently, some haven't won in decades, and a few are still waiting for their first championship. Let's get into it. Arizona Diamondbacks 2001. The Diamondbacks won their first and only World Series in 2001, and honestly, they did it in one of the craziest ways possible. They were only in their fourth season of franchise, which is ridiculous when you think about how long some teams wait. Arizona took down the Yankees in 7 games, right after New York had won 3 straight titles. Game 7 ended with Luis Gonzalez hitting that bloop single off Mariano Rivera, one of the greatest closers ever. Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling completely carried that pitching staff too. For Diamondback fans, that title still feels legendary because it came against a dynasty at the absolute peak of baseball.
Left side, Swanson to first. The Braves are world champions.
Atlanta Braves 2021. The Braves finally broke through again in 2021 after years of playoff heartbreak. What made it crazier is Atlanta only won 88 games in the regular season and looked dead halfway through the year after Ronald Acuña Jr. got hurt. Then the front office made a bunch of trade deadline moves that completely changed the season. Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, and Jock Peterson all became legends overnight. Atlanta beat the Astros in 6 games, and Soler's moonshot in Houston is still one of the coldest World Series home runs ever. After decades of only one title in the 90s jokes, Braves fans finally got another ring.
A liner, and the Orioles are the world champions.
Baltimore Orioles, 1983. The Orioles haven't won a World Series since 1983, which honestly surprises younger fans because Baltimore has had some really good teams over the years. That 1983 squad beat the Phillies in 5 games behind stars like Cal Ripken Jr., Eddie Murray. Since then, Orioles fans have gone through a lot of rough baseball, especially during the late 90s and most of the 2010s. The good news is the current team finally looks dangerous again, with a young core that could eventually end the drought. But for now, 1983 is still the last championship banner hanging at Baltimore.
New pitch. Red Sox win the World Series.
Boston Red Sox, 2018. The Red Sox last won it all in 2018, and that team was just stacked from top to bottom. They won 108 regular season games and steamrolled basically everybody in the playoffs. Mookie Betts was the MVP-level All-Star, JD Martinez matched all year, and Chris Sale closed out the World Series striking out Manny Machado. Boston beat the Dodgers in 5 games, and honestly, it felt like they were the best team in baseball from opening day to the final out. It's also wild because before 2004, Red Sox fans thought they were cursed forever, and now they've won 4 titles since then.
Here's the 0-1. This is going to be a tough play. The Cubs win the World Series.
Chicago Cubs, 2016. The Cubs ended their drought in 2016 and probably one of the biggest sports moments of the century. We're talking about a franchise that hadn't won since 1908. Over 100 years of pain, bad luck, curses, goats of it all. Then Game 7 came. Cleveland became an instant classic. Rain delay, extra innings, insane pressure. Somehow the Cubs survived it. Chris Bryant throwing to Anthony Rizzo for the final out is one of those baseball moments everybody remembers. That championship completely changed how Cubs fans view the franchise forever.
Over the head of Jenks. Uribe charges, throws. Out! And the White Sox have won the World Series.
Chicago White Sox, 2005. People weirdly forget how dominant the White Sox were in 2005. They only lost 1 playoff game the entire postseason. Chicago swept the Astros in the World Series, and their pitching staff was unbelievable. The starters were throwing complete games like it was the 1970s. Paul Konerko, Jermaine Dye, Mark Buehler. That whole team was built perfectly for October baseball. The craziest part is, they haven't really come close to another title since then, even with some talented rosters over the last few years.
And Myers bringing it. And the pitch is hit in the air. Foul off first. Benzinger backing and calling. And the 1990 World Championship belongs to the Cincinnati Reds.
Cincinnati Reds, 1990. The Reds last won the World Series in 1990, and they shocked everybody by sweeping the heavily favored Oakland A's. Cincinnati's Nasty Boys bullpen became legendary because they slammed the door every game. Jose Ryu dominated the series and won MVP honors. Since then, Reds fans have been mostly stuck watching rebuild after rebuild with only a few playoff appearances sprinkled in. It's been over 3 decades now, which is tough for one of baseball's oldest franchises.
And the 1948 World Series is all over. The Cleveland Indians win a 4-3 triumph over the Boston Braves in the final game to take the series 4-2.
Cleveland Guardians, 1948. Then the Cleveland Indians. Cleveland hasn't won the World Series since 1948, which makes this one of the longest droughts in MLB history. They've come painfully close multiple times too. The biggest heartbreak was probably 2016, when they were literally one win away before the Cubs came back in Game 7. Guardians fans have had seen Hall of Fame talent come through the organization for decades, but somehow the championship just never happens. At this point, every October run feels like the pressure gets heavier and heavier. Colorado Rockies, never. The Rockies are one of 5 teams that have never won a World Series. Although they did make it in 2007, that Rocktober run was insane because Colorado got unbelievably hot at the perfect time. They swept through the playoffs and looked unstoppable until they ran into the Red Sox. Since then, Rockies fans have mostly suffered through pitching disasters thanks to Coors Field being impossible for pitchers. It feels like every good Colorado team can hit, but the pitching eventually falls apart. Detroit Tigers, 1984. The Tigers last won it all in 1984, and that team absolutely dominated baseball from the start of the season. Detroit started 35-5, which is still one of the craziest openings ever. Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker were stars, and Jack Morris led the pitching staff. Since then, Tigers fans have had some brutal World Series losses too, especially in 2006 and 2012, when it looked like they had enough talent to win another ring. That 1984 championship still stands alone.
There goes the runner, fly ball down the right field line. Tucker comes on. Kyle Tucker, this time they finish the job. The Houston Astros, world champions.
Houston Astros, 2022. The Astros won their most recent title in 2022, beating the Phillies in 6 games. By that point, Houston had already become the most modern baseball dynasty nobody can avoid. Whether fans love them or hate them because of their sign-stealing scandal, the Astros just keep winning. Jeremy Pena stepped up as a rookie, and winning World Series MVP was huge, especially after Carlos Correa left. Houston's pitching was elite all postseason too. The scary part for the rest of the league is the Astros somehow always seem to reload instead of rebuilding.
The 1-2 again. Inside the Royals, 2015 World Champions.
Kansas City Royals, 2015. The Royals won the World Series in 2015 after coming painfully close the year before. Kansas City built such a weird but fun roster compared to the rest of baseball. They relied on speed, defense, contact hitting, and an absolutely filthy bullpen. Salvador Perez became the face of the franchise during that run, and the Royals beat the Mets in 5 games. For a smaller market team, that championship felt massive because it proved you didn't need a gigantic payroll to win it all.
Driven into right center field. Erstad says he has it. The Angels, world champions.
Los Angeles Angels, 2002. The Angels' only World Series title came in 2002 and is still one of the most memorable postseason runs ever. Anaheim came back from the brink against the Giants in Game 6 after being down 5-0. The rally completely changed the series. Troy Glass became a hero, and that rally monkey era is burned into baseball history forever. What's crazy is the Angels have had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani since then and still couldn't get back to the World Series.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Kirk bounces one up the middle. Bits to the bag. Over to first to beat the champ. You gotta knock him out. The Dodgers stand tall.
Los Angeles Dodgers, 2025. The Dodgers won the World Series again in 2025 and officially turned themselves into baseball's newest dynasty. After already winning in 2020 and 2024, LA became the first team in 25 years to go back-to-back after beating the Blue Jays in an absolutely insane 7-game series. Yamamoto completely took over October and won World Series MVP, while stars like Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Will Smith delivered huge moments all postseason.
Trying to win it all again. Posada, slow roller right side. Beckett picks it up, tags Posada, and the Florida Marlins are world champions.
Miami Marlins, 2003. The Marlins are one of the weirdest franchises in baseball history because they've never won their division, but they have 2 World Series titles. Their last one came in 2003 with a super young roster led by Josh Beckett and Miguel Cabrera. Beckett throwing a complete game shutout in a Yankee Stadium to win the title was legendary. The Marlins beat the Yankees in 6 games and instantly became giant killers again. Then, like always, the team got dismantled not long after that. Milwaukee Brewers, never. The Brewers have never won a World Series, although they've had some really strong teams over the years. Their closest call was 1982 when they lost to the Cardinals in 7 games. More recently, Milwaukee's consistently been competitive thanks to great pitching and Christian Yelich's MVP years. The problem is it can never quite break through in October. Brewers fans are still waiting for that one magical run to finally happen.
The Twins are going to win the World Series! The Twins have won it!
Minnesota Twins, 1991. The Twins last won the World Series in 1991, and that series against Atlanta is considered one of the greatest ever played. They were multiple extra inning games, dramatic moments, and Jack Morris throwing 10 shutout innings in Game 7. Became baseball history since then. Minnesota has had a bizarre reputation for constantly losing in the playoffs, especially to the Yankees. The 1991 title still feels iconic because it was such a perfect baseball series from start to finish.
Got him!
New York Mets, 1986. The Mets last won in 1986, and honestly, that team was pure chaos in the best possible way. They had swagger, talent, personalities, and one of the craziest World Series comebacks ever. Everybody remembers Bill Buckner's error in Game 6, but the Mets still had to win Game 7. After that, Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden, Keith Hernandez, their roster was loaded. Mets fans have had a lot of heartbreak since then, which somehow makes that 1986 team feel even more legendary.
To the second baseman, Cano. The Yankees are back on top. World champions for the 27th time.
New York Yankees, 2009. The Yankees haven't won since 2009, which sounds insane considering they're the Yankees. That championship was the first one in the new Yankee Stadium, and they beat the Phillies in 6 games. Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Alex Rodriguez, and CC Sabathia were all huge parts of that run. Since then, New York has spent massive amounts of money and made the playoffs constantly, but they still haven't reached another World Series. For most franchises, 2009 wouldn't feel that long ago. For Yankees fans, it feels like forever.
For them tonight. It's a ground ball to the right side, speared by Phillips, flips to Eckersley. Yes, he's there in time, and the A's are the world champions.
Oakland Athletics, 1989. The A's last won the World Series in 1989 during the famous Battle of the Bay against the Giants. That series is remembered just as much for the devastating earthquake that interrupted Game 3 as a baseball itself. Oakland had stars everywhere with the Bash Brothers era led by Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco. Since then, Athletics fans have dealt with ownership drama, tiny payrolls, and now relocation issues. It's honestly been rough for one of baseball's most historic franchises.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions.
Philadelphia Phillies, 2008. The Phillies won their last title in 2008 behind a core that fans absolutely loved. Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Cole Hamels. That whole team had personality. Philadelphia beat the Rays in a weird World Series that even got suspended because of rain. Brad Lidge, finishing the season with a perfect save record, was a perfect ending. Phillies fans are still hoping this newer core can bring another parade back to the city soon.
Edge. Kelly hits it in the air to center field. Moreno going toward right center, makes the catch. Pittsburgh wins it.
Pittsburgh Pirates, 1979. The Pirates haven't won since 1979, back when the We Are Family team became iconic. Willie Stargell led the clubhouse, and Pittsburgh beat the Orioles in 7 games. Since then, Pirates fans have mostly suffered through losing seasons and rebuilds. The franchise has had brief moments of hope, especially during the Andrew McCutchen years, but no real postseason success. At this point, younger Pirates fans have basically never experienced meaningful October baseball. San Diego Padres. Never. The Padres are still searching for their first World Series title despite having some stacked rosters recently. San Diego made the World Series in 1984 and 1998, but lost both times. Now they've built superstar teams with huge payrolls, trying to finally break through. Padres fans desperately want a championship because baseball means so much in San Diego, especially with the Chargers leaving town. The pressure keeps building every single season.
Popped up. Sandoval in foul territory. Giants win.
San Francisco Giants, 2014. The Giants last won in 2014, which capped off one of the weirdest dynasties of modern sports. San Francisco won 3 titles in 5 years despite never really feeling like an unbeatable super team. Madison Bumgarner completely carried the 2014 postseason and basically turned into a baseball superhero. His Game 7 relief appearance against the Royals is legendary. Giants fans probably still can't believe they got 3 championships in such a short stretch. Seattle Mariners. Never. The Mariners are the only franchise to never even appear in a World Series. That alone is brutal. Seattle has had some incredible players too. Ken Griffey Jr., Ichiro, Felix Hernandez, but somehow never reached a fall classic. The closest they came was 2001 when they won 116 games and still didn't make it. Mariners fans are incredibly loyal though, and if Seattle ever finally gets there, the atmosphere would be unbelievable.
In the air to left, well hit. Back is Craig. What a team. What a ride. The Cardinals are world champs.
St. Louis Cardinals, 2011. The Cardinals last won the World Series in 2011 after one of the craziest postseason runs ever. St. Louis barely made the playoffs and then shocked everybody. Game 6 against the Rangers is considered one of the greatest baseball games ever played. David Frese became a legend overnight with clutch hits after clutch hits. The Cardinals eventually won Game 7, and somehow the franchise just keeps finding ways to stay competitive no matter the era. Tampa Bay Rays. Never. The Rays still haven't won a World Series, even though they've been one of the smartest organizations in baseball for years. Tampa Bay constantly competes with one of the smallest payrolls in the league. They reached a World Series in 2008 and 2020, but lost both times. The Rays are basically the definition of doing more with less. The problem is October baseball can be brutal, and eventually, talent usually wins out.
It's happened! The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
Texas Rangers, 2023. The Rangers finally won their World Series in 2023, and it completely changed that narrative around the franchise. Texas had suffered some devastating losses before, especially in 2011 when they were literally one strike away from winning it all. In 2023, though, everything clicked. Corey Seager turned into a playoff monster again, and the Rangers beat the Diamondbacks in 5 games. For Rangers fans, it felt like decades of pain finally disappeared overnight.
Here's the pitch on the way, a swing and a belt, left field, way back, Blue Jays win it! The Blue Jays are World Series champions!
Toronto Blue Jays, 1993. The Blue Jays last won the World Series in 1993, becoming the last team outside the United States to win it all. Joe Carter's walk-off home run against the Phillies is one of the most iconic moments in MLB history. You can still hear the call. Touch 'em all, Joe. Since then, Toronto has had exciting teams, but none have managed to bring another championship back to Canada. Blue Jays fans are still chasing that early 90s magic.
3-2. Here it is! The Washington Nationals are world champions!
Washington Nationals, 2019. The Nationals won their first World Series in 2019, and the craziest part is they started that season 19-31. Most teams would have folded completely, but Washington caught fire at the perfect time. Steven Strasburg was unbelievable in the postseason, Juan Soto became a superstar, and Howie Kendrick had massive clutch hits. The Nationals beat the Astros in 7 games, winning every single game on the road. It was one of the most improbable championship runs baseball has seen in years. So, which fan base is suffering the most right now, and which team do you think is next to end their drought? Drop it in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.